What's going on, Sports Wars? We're here and we're live for some Monday evening quarterback. I know we're late. We had some scheduling things going on. As you can see, Robert Barnes is not here with us tonight. Shockingly, Robert, as a lawyer, has some important things that may have come up that he actually needs to take care of. So he's going to hop in some point during the stream if he can, if he's able to take care of that stuff. So either way, Robert Barnes is going to be here for Monday evening quarterback for the next 17 weeks, even if he can't make it tonight. But we do also have Fear the Beardo here. What's up, man? How you doing?
What's up, Brian? What's up, chat? I'm doing good off of that Giants win yesterday. Feeling pretty good so far. So glad to be here.
I know, right? Like, you were talking about the Giants. You said they're going to give the Titans a run for their money. They certainly did, and a missed field goal at the end. Just like we saw a lot of missed field goals in big moments yesterday in week one of the NFL.
Yep.
That definitely came back to haunt some people.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely did. Let's take a look at this chat because Gabriel Knight sent a super chat before the stream started. I fear history is repeating itself with the Bengals and they're squandering Burrow's potential, much like Carson Palmer, and he will get disgusted with team management and bolt. Disgraceful game. Well, that's the first thing we have to talk about today because there was a lot of tight games, actually, week one of the NFL. We talked about it with Robert on the Wednesday betting stream against the spread. That's the name. You can catch that on Wednesdays with Robert Barnes and a bunch of the other guys from sportspicks.locals.com. You know, there were a lot of road favorites. There were a lot of people that were favored, but they were road teams, you know, coming into a place on week one with a frenzied crowd. And that resulted in some very tight games, some upsets, some last-minute victories, some last-minute non-victories or defeats, because we actually saw a tie between the Colts and the Texans. But I think the game that really summarizes how crazy week one was has to be Steelers and Bengals. This is a game we talked about a couple times in the lead up. You know, you got Joe Burrow coming off that Super Bowl loss with the Cincinnati Bengals, a lot of high expectations in Cincinnati, and a Pittsburgh team who is now finally found their replacement, at least they think, for Ben Roethlisberger in Mitch Trubisky. And this game was crazy. It went into overtime. They tied it up right at the end, only to miss an extra point to send it into overtime. But what was your takeaway? I know you watched probably the second half of this game, Beardo. I watched basically the entire thing. 4 turnovers from Joe Burrow in the first half, 5 turnovers from Joe Burrow overall in the game. Yet somehow, at the end, they're still in it. How did the Steelers not put this away?
Yeah, and they lost a few key weapons, too. I know Higgins went down, I think, in the second half, and a lot of drops from Cincinnati yesterday. But Joe Mixon in the second half, I think he really kind of he was the workhorse in the second half, and just shame on the Steelers for letting them come back and make it a competitive game. Yes, the Steelers won, but when you have 5 turnovers as a quarterback, and you bring the team back and send the game to overtime, that should have never happened. Pittsburgh, that should have never fucking happened.
I totally agree. And it's kind of a little bit of an indictment of the Steelers. Now, even though that Steelers defense forced a lot of takeaways, you saw TJ Watt just all over the place until he reportedly tore his pec. We'll see what actual effects that has. It looks like they're getting second opinions to see if it really is, you know, as bad as people think it is. But when you have all these things, when you force 5 turnovers from Joe Burrow, you have to convert. You have to put this game away before they did. And it looks like they definitely tried to play within themselves, not ask Trubisky to do too much, have Trubisky take care of the ball. And that's what, you know, if you could put Trubisky in that position each and every week, you'll probably be pretty good on the season. But still, somehow they let Joe Burrow and that Bengals offense make a roaring comeback in the fourth quarter, score a touchdown to Jamar Chase. They had so many opportunities. Like opportunity after opportunity in the red zone, drop pass here, penalty here. All these things kept happening. Finally, with 2 seconds left, Jamar Chase catches a pass from Joe Burrow. And, everything is good. They're going to win by a point. Blocked extra point. Headed to overtime. They get the ball back, and then they drive all the way down. Miss the fucking field goal that would have won the game. Steelers come back, kick a field goal. Boom, off the fucking upright. And then finally, somebody had to make a play, and it was the Steelers. Boswell knocks one through to win the game, and the Steelers walk away 1-0. Bengals, you got to be disappointed to have so many opportunities to win it and not come away with it.
Yeah.
Do you think this means anything for the Bengals going forward? Because obviously, Joe Burrow made a lot of mistakes in terms of throwing when he really shouldn't have, turned the ball over a lot, but still, we saw that Cincinnati Bengals offense do what it did last year and come back and move the ball when they had to.
Yeah, they showed some resiliency towards the end of the game, but their offensive line still looks terrible. And I know that they made moves in the draft to help protect Joe Burrow because essentially that could have been the difference between them winning the Super Bowl last or just this past February. And the difference between them winning and losing, and they were supposed to shore up their offensive line for Joe Burrow, and they still looked bad. They looked really bad. But also, I don't think the Steelers were counting on Mitch Trubisky to, be the workhorse and carry the load and be the deciding factor of why they won that game. Not Najee is their best offensive player, and he went down too with a pretty bad looking knee injury. He went off the field on his own power, but very visibly upset, losing TJ Watt and Najee. I think that could have also been a factor that helped the Bengals sneak back into this game.
Yeah, and I did see an update on Najee Harris. They did some tests on his foot because I believe it was a foot injury, and he says he's good to go, so he should be ready for next week. But yeah, we'll see if that lingers for Najee Harris at all. But Steelers off to a good start. I really thought the Bengals were going to go and looking to send a message. Looks like Joe Burrow might have been pushing a little bit too much.
Yeah, Joe Burrow without his appendix, maybe not Joe Cool that he was last year. Maybe that appendix was
it's throwing him off balance a little bit. That's the kicker for Joe Burrow. That could be it. But it was a crazy game though. It was a crazy game to watch. A really fun one for any football fans out there that like just fun games, because that was definitely a fun game to watch.
Yes.
Now, a game that wasn't a ton of fun to watch unless you like really sloppy, wet, rainy games was the San Francisco 49ers at my Chicago Bears. Now, I have been shit talking the Bears quite a bit over the past couple days and weeks leading up to this season because I really don't think that that offense is going to be able to consistently do anything. And I don't think this game really proved anything to me, like, to alter that fact. That's still my belief going in. I don't think this offense is really going to be able to move the ball consistently. That defense could definitely do some things and force people into turnovers, and maybe the Bears have a decent season from that. But it was so wet and ridiculous, and Trey Lance did not look impressive. Justin Fields, to everyone's credit, did not look impressive. Justin Fields had one play that he really opened up, and it was like a 50 or 60-yard touchdown pass on a scramble and a completely blown coverage that there's nobody on the one half of the entire field that ended up, he got a touchdown out of that. If you take that one play away, he basically threw like 7 for 16 for 70 yards. That was Justin Fields' day. It was not pretty, but the Bears somehow get it done with some late mistakes by Trey Lance and that 49ers team, and really nobody could move the ball in that mess.
Yeah, and the 49ers, I don't believe Kittle did not play yesterday, and then I think
Correct.
Elijah Mitchell didn't. He got hurt too.
He went down about halfway through the game, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, Trey Lance, who is essentially a rookie. I know he was a rookie last year, but he did not see any game time, kind of like the Jordan Love treatment that Jordan Love had his first year in Green Bay. Trey Lance is essentially a rookie. He doesn't have much game time in the NFL. So we'll see what the leash is on Trey Lance, because this 49ers team has been to the Super Bowl in the past 3 years. They've been to the NFC Championship. They've done well, even if you think that maybe they didn't deserve to be there. They were there with Jimmy G. And when you have Jimmy G sitting on the sideline and these expectations from the 49ers, Kyle Shanahan, great coach, John Lynch, great GM, and then they make this move for Trey Lance, it's almost like feels like they're forcing Trey Lance onto the field because they're protecting their asset because they traded away so much to get him. But the teammates, the locker room, what's the team, the players going to think, if this team, they think, with Jimmy G, we've been there And if they find themselves 4-4, 4-5, there's going to be some controversy in the locker room with these players. What are we doing here? We have Jimmy G here. He's taken us to the promised land before. We didn't win, but he took us there. And we're starting this kid and we're rocking with him. It's bizarre to see.
Yeah. And ultimately, this game is kind of a wash for both teams, evaluating, what you're able to do offensively. I think just because it was so wet and so rainy and so tough to actually, whether you're talking about players making blocks or you're talking about people making catches or throws. So ultimately, I think the jury's still out on both of these offenses until we get to see them in some actual not terrible weather. But It was fun to see Justin Fields kneel at the end and the entire Bears team go and do slip and slide in the end zone as a celebration.
That was cool.
Again, as a Bears fan, I'm excited about the win. I am not necessarily feeling the same way, super excited about the rest of the season, but I hope Justin Fields continues to prove me wrong. I would love for that to happen because I would love a Chicago Bears team that can actually do some damage this year.
It seems like they have all of their eggs in that Justin Fields basket. It really does. Like there's like his supporting cast. There's not really any big name heavy hitters besides Justin Fields. When you talk about the Bears offense, it's really kind of Justin Fields.
Yeah. And I think that as well with everything the Bears have going on to pick Justin Fields when you have someone like Matt Nagy there to, hey, this is going to be my offensive guy. This is going to be my guy, the quarterback fucking guy, the guru, right? Supposedly.
Yeah.
And then you move on to a defensive guy in Eberflus, for his second season. It's like, hey, you did put a lot of draft stock in Justin Fields, but now you're changing coaches, you're changing everything up. So how's that going to work going forward? I don't know, but hey, Bears get the victory. I did real quick want to address, because I saw a couple of people in chat say, where's Barnes? Robert's running late. Hopefully can make it here at some point during the stream, but the show must go on. Robert had some scheduling stuff. Obviously, he's a very fucking busy man. He actually has real life shit going on, as opposed to necessarily talking about millionaires playing football. But hopefully he'll be with us. He is going to be here with us, each and every week, unless he has something come up throughout the rest of the season. Chris Correa for 2 says, let's fucking go GOAT, go Bucks. We might as well talk about that game as well. Speaking of games that weren't super entertaining to watch, the Sunday night matchup between the Dallas Cowboys and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. A lot of stuff going on with Tom Brady, a lot of drama on the outside surrounding his personal life. Notably, Gisele Bündchen did send out a tweet before the game. Let's go Tom Brady, let's go Bucks. So I don't know how intentional that was, if she knows all the stuff is going on, but I think that was a positive message for her to send for sure before this game went on. Tampa Bay looked like they were in trouble moving the ball. I think the first 5 possessions, they were forced into field goal attempts. They ended up missing one of them.
Yep.
Dallas Cowboys could not move the ball. Cowboys offense looked anemic. Dak Prescott did go down with an injury in the fourth quarter, ran off the field with people booing him in Dallas and throwing trash at him. Well, it turned out he had a fractured thumb, got surgery today. He's going to be gone for 6 to 8 weeks. Dallas has a big hole to fill now at quarterback. We'll see what they end up doing. Yep. But wasn't a pretty looking game for the Bucs. They did what they needed to do. Mike Evans had a touchdown. We saw the first look at Julio Jones. I don't know, Beardo, what was your takeaway from this game between Bucs and Cowboys? A rematch of their opener from last season.
Yeah, I thought it was one of the more boring games of the weekend. I think maybe Jets and Ravens was probably the most boring, but this was not a very exciting game. It wasn't sexy by any means. It does look like Tampa Bay is struggling from having those from their center Jensen going down, and I think they also have a tackle or a guard that also went down this preseason. So some struggles up front. I don't think that Brady kind of had any head issues, like mentally, like head game playing mind games. I didn't see that from Brady. I like the way that they utilized Julio Jones. I thought it was unique with him carrying the ball out of the backfield. He's still fast as fuck. So Leonard Fournette ran the ball well, but
really well. And there were some concerns
really
about Leonard Fournette's weight coming into training camp.
Mm-hmm.
He looked really good. He had 20 carries for like $127, something like that. So he was really effective for them. You hit something there with the offensive line. The offensive line looked discombobulated at times. You saw Brady getting upset, yelling at his offensive lineman a little bit. I personally think that especially when you have a couple offensive linemen go down in training camp, for Brady to be absent for 2 weeks of training camp, I do think that has an effect. When you are the starter, when there's these new guys coming in the rotation, and you were gone for a couple weeks, that might be a little bit of a factor when you're looking at these protection schemes, when you're looking at them maybe not quite being in sync, when you see him getting a little frustrated about his protection at times.
Mm-hmm.
But overall, they didn't need to do much to beat the Cowboys. And for the Cowboys, are they going to continue with Cooper Rush as their quarterback? Is that the plan? Or do we see the Cowboys go out there and make a move? Do they go out there and make a play for a target like Jimmy G? Did they give up a couple draft picks to get Jimmy G? Or do you try to hold the line? Do you try to hold out? Do you maybe pick up a different veteran or something like that you think can tide you over half the season until Dak comes back?
Yeah, and when he went down, the score was 19-3, right? The final score was 19-3, and when he went down, it was 19-3.
Yeah, I don't think anyone scored between then. Yeah.
So I mean, it was the fourth quarter, 19-3. The Cowboys couldn't do anything all night offensively. I mean, who else? Leave it up to the Cowboys fans to fucking boo your all-star quarterback who's supposed to be great. I mean, Dak, he's above average. He's not top tier, but he's in the better quarterbacks in the league. And for the Cowboys fans to boo your injured quarterback when you guys are pretty much the game is over at this point. Leave it up to Cowboy fans, I guess.
I don't know. Listen, as a fan, I don't think you should have trash thrown at him. But if I'm a Cowboys fan, it's opening it. We gave Dak Prescott a lot of money. Jerry Jones gave Dak Prescott a lot of fucking money. I don't think he should have given him that money personally, because I don't think Dak is very good. However, he did get paid. And when you get paid and you come out that flat, less than 50% completion percentage, throwing like for barely over 100 yards.
Yeah.
The offense looked like shit.
Yep.
It really did. So yeah, I'd be frustrated if I was a Cowboy fan. Now, if I knew that Dak was hurt, would I boo him when he was going to the locker room? Probably not. But hell, yeah. I mean, I do think that fans are more than willing to like voice their opinions when players disappoint like that. So yeah.
I also think Kellen Moore, their offensive coordinator, is supposed to be this big brain, huge offensive guy, just knows the game of football offensively inside and out. Supposedly, he's supposed to, Kellen Moore. There were rumors about that when he was at Boise State as well. He backed up Dak Prescott in the beginning of his career. Jerry Jones wanted to hire him. He was the quarterback coach for a little bit, and now he's the offensive coordinator. How much is this the Cowboys falling flat on offense? Is Kellen Moore trying too hard? Is he trying to do this whole outsmarting thing, and he's maybe just trying too hard? Maybe he needs to make it more simple, dumb it down a little bit for these guys.
Yeah, I think they should do that. I think that they should, scheme with some shorter pass plays, specifically for Tony Pollard. I think that Tony Pollard being more involved is a good thing for the Cowboys. Obviously, a guy who's very effective there the last couple of years was Amari Cooper. He's gone. He's with the Browns now. So maybe they're missing that. Maybe they're missing that guy to take the top off. I don't know. But yeah, it did not look good for the Cowboys, certainly. Couple other ones here. Henry Ruggs Driving Academy. What's up, Henry Ruggs? Good to see you. For $5 says critical hit. Thank you very much. The Gilk Man for 2. The Patriots game was embarrassing. Well, that's what we need to talk about next, because I saw Drunk 3PO in here earlier. Famously, Jay, it's a big Miami Dolphins fan. He made a terrible video for this channel one time, reacting to the Miami Dolphins winning in the last second. I think maybe even against the Patriots. But it was a horrific video, but it got decent views though. But Miami Dolphins, big question mark for Miami coming into this season. They got a new look offense. They got a new offensive minded head coach, who, of course, they're very happy that is a diverse coach too. People were very excited about that. But also you have Tyreek Hill on the opposite side from Jalen Waddle. You have like legitimate speed on this team.
Yep. And
hey, they look good. Tua looked good. The team looked good. They beat down the Patriots 20-7 at home in Miami. Patriots sometimes struggle down in Miami, at least throughout the past couple decades they have. And that certainly was the case once again. And Man, I can't imagine Bill Belichick super happy after having this type of opening for his Pats.
There was rumors coming out of Patriots camp about how bad their offense was struggling in camp, and you kind of have to think, and Josh Daniels, right? Josh Daniels, new head
Josh
coach of the
McDaniels?
Raiders.
Josh McDaniels, yeah.
Josh McDaniels. He was the offensive mind, the offensive coordinator for most of Brady's career, and then recently, I mean, they had Bill O'Brien for a little bit when Josh McDaniels went to Denver, and then he came crawling back to the Patriots. He took half of the Patriots staff with him to Vegas, and because the Patriots brought back Matt Patricia from Detroit, and also they brought back Joe Judge from the Giants. And Matt Patricia is a defensive mind. He was a defensive coordinator with New England before, and then again with defensive mind with Detroit. Now he's like co-offensive coordinator with Joe Judge for the Patriots.
It's kind of weird.
It doesn't make sense to me. Make that make sense. And when you are hearing the rumors of the struggles on offense, and then Matt Patricia is a defensive minded, and he's in control of the offense, co-coaching with Joe Judge, who was terrible with the Giants. I think the Patriots are going to struggle a lot this year, and they're going to miss Josh McDaniels.
And we'll see. I do think that with Mac Jones, I think we've seen them be very conservative with what they've let Mac Jones do so far. I think that for them to be really successful, they're going to need to open up. They're going to need to let him go out there and sling the ball around a little bit. Now, that becomes a problem when you look at maybe they don't have the weapons you think they should have, but you're not just going to be able to scheme your way into everything. And they went down to Miami and they were shut down pretty hard. Mac Jones didn't look great. There was a little question about an injury potentially for Mac Jones, but it looks like he's going to be okay. But yeah, Tua looked good. This is a game that Tua needs to have around 30 passes, slinging the ball around to people like Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, being able to spread the field. Chase Edmonds, I think, was a very big pickup for them. I think he fits the scheme of what they want to do. Obviously, it was an Arizona Cardinal last year, Miami Dolphin this year. Mm-hmm. And to have a guy like Chase Edmonds coming out of the backfield now, if you've got people backing off, you've got all of a sudden the second level of defense starts moving back a little bit to not have to worry about these big speedsters. That will really open up the middle of the field for a guy like Chase Edmonds to get more opportunities out of the backfield. They didn't run the ball great. I would say that's probably their biggest concern right now is they didn't move the ball on the ground very well at all. Mm-hmm. But other than that, Miami looks solid. And
they have a lot of speed. And it's going to be hard for defenses and going forward. If you're going to double up Tyreek, or if you're going to have your best DB on Tyreek, that leaves Waddle right open. And if you're going to decide, okay, we need to double Waddle or put extra coverage on Waddle, well then you have Tyreek. So it's a catch-22.
Yeah, it really is. So it was a little bit rough. Speaking of rough, another team that was able to put up barely any points, just 7 points, was the Green Bay Packers. Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers went up against the Vikings. And, the Vikings with Kirk Cousins, I know people love to hate the guy. He's a good quarterback for what they need him to do. Is he going to make some dumb mistakes? Is he going to make some dumb plays, turn the ball over? He's going to come up small and maybe big primetime games once in a while. Yeah. But at the same time, with the weapons they have on that team, with guys like Jefferson, with guys like Adam Thielen, with guys out of the backfield like Cook, they will move the ball. They will score. Yep. That Vikings team is going to score on you. And the Packers were not really able to answer them. Now, there could have been like an 80-yard touchdown that was just one of the worst drops we saw possible in that game from one of the rookie wide receivers. I'm sure that didn't make Aaron Rodgers very happy, but that's one of the big question marks with with Devontae Adams going for the Raiders and putting up big numbers for Derek Carr and the Raiders. Who is going to get the production now from the Green Bay Packers? And that question is still very much unanswered at this point in time.
Yeah, and I think wasn't Lazard didn't play yesterday, and I think that the Packers were expecting Lazard to kind of step into a more prominent wide receiver role, and not having him play yesterday. And then also Randall Cobb is old as fuck. He's past his prime. He's over the hill. He's lost a few steps in his game. And when you don't go out and replace a guy like Devontae Adams, who they traded, the Packers in recent years haven't been doing a good job of making Aaron Rodgers very happy, besides giving him money. They don't surround Rodgers with the playmakers like other teams, like Josh Allen. The Bills went out and got Stephon Diggs for Josh Allen. And you see other teams, they'll do anything to, like the Dolphins, for instance, going out and getting Tyreek, drafting Waddle for Tua. When you invest and you have these quarterbacks who you are invested in, you got to give them playmakers to work with. And the Packers, they haven't done that for Rodgers.
Yeah, and take a look. This was the first offensive play of the game. Christian Watson, rookie that they drafted, up here, just absolutely beats the coverage. Aaron Rodgers drops a dime, and this is the result here. I don't think there's any audio on this, which is probably a good thing.
Oh, my goodness.
It's just a walk away touchdown. I mean, so much separation, absolutely burned him. And Aaron Rodgers drops it perfect. Like, that is a perfect pass. And he just completely dropped it. After beating Patrick Peterson, surefire touchdown. That's not a great way to start your career as a Packers wide receiver. And when you look at these numbers, man, Aaron Rodgers passing for under 200 yards, not great. Aaron Rodgers didn't pass for a touchdown. He had a pick. When's the last time that happened? When's the last time Aaron Rodgers threw an interception and no touchdowns in a game? I don't know. Right. But not a great start for them. As a Bears fan, it makes me very happy. It makes me extremely happy to see Aaron Rodgers and the Packers fucking struggle. I don't know if that's going to continue, but I think there's got to be a lot of questions surrounding that receiving core and that offense. And
when you miss a play like that, those are motivation killers. Like that, the difference of making that catch and scoring that huge touchdown gives you momentum, gives you hope, makes you excited. The defense wants to go out there and get the ball back so that you guys can go do it again. But when you just have a completely blatant drop like that, man, that's just a mood killer, motivation killer. And, that could be the difference between winning and losing a game like that. When you make those big plays, easy plays, a surefire touchdown, and then it's just completely dropped, your teammates. Yeah, it's just a motivation killer.
Yeah, for sure. And to be fair, we got to give credit to the Vikings. That Vikings defense played very well against the Packers, and their offense continues to look like they're going to perform very well. Justin Jefferson went off, had like 180 yards receiving, 2 touchdowns. Dalvin Cook looked very solid, but they didn't really need to do too much. They were in control the entire game, and it really wasn't even close. There was a lot of close games, but the one game that really wasn't competitive really at all was Chiefs Cardinals. Chiefs came in, they lost Tyreek Hill, obviously, but Patrick Mahomes looked very, very good. That Chiefs team picked up right where they've left off the past several seasons with a big week, and it didn't look like the game was really ever in doubt. Kyler Murray and that Cardinals offense never really looked in sync either. And the Chiefs roll 44-21. I don't know how much of this game you got to watch specifically, Beardo, but how did Patrick Mahomes look to you?
I actually didn't catch this one. Where I was at watching, the game wasn't on where I was sitting, so I didn't catch all of this one. I saw a few highlights. I know that Kelsey did well, obviously, because with Tyreek gone, Kelsey is, even though he's tight end number 1, he's also wide receiver number 1. Kelsey he's the guy there for Mahomes. So yeah, I mean, it's week 1. It's week 1 of the NFL. A lot of these teams are still figuring out who they are. They're trying to get on the same page, and the Chiefs definitely looked the most in touch for sure this week.
Yeah, they look solid. They look in midseason form. Patrick Mahomes, 5 touchdowns. At one point, he completed a pass to like 9 different receivers, so he's really spreading the ball around a lot. Kelsey did have a big game. And conversely for the Cardinals, it's not like they looked terrible, I guess. They were certainly weren't able to keep up with the offensive production that the Chiefs had. Kyler Murray without their number one target with DeAndre Hopkins sitting out for the first several games because of that PED suspension.
Yep.
I don't know who that next guy is for them. They traded for Hollywood Brown in the middle of the season. You thought that was going to be big. He had a couple catches, not really anything that stood out in particular. But I don't know. There's not too much to go off other than the Cardinals are not in the same league as the Kansas City Chiefs. I don't know if anyone was expecting them to be, but certainly Patrick Mahomes looks really, really good.
Yep.
So, and I see Lauren. Lauren says Rodgers is good. Got to calm down. Hey, listen, Lauren. I'm just gonna say, Aaron Rodgers is one of the most talented quarterbacks we've ever seen. However, I don't think we've ever seen him with as few weapons as he has right now. With as few unproven weapons that he has right now. That's all I'll say about it. So I certainly don't want to play the Packers as a Bears fan because Aaron Rodgers, as he said correctly, he owns us.
Yep.
He owns the fucking Chicago Bears, but we'll see what happens. We will see what happens.
I think the Packers are the favorite to win the NFC North.
I mean, you can't tell. I don't think you can change something like that after one game necessarily.
Right.
It'd be a huge overreaction if anyone did. But it's one game. We'll see what happens going forward. I do think that that's their direct competition is the Vikings in the NFC North. Yep. And it was not a good opener for them. They did not look good against their biggest competition in the NFC North right now. Now, there were a lot of close games that came right down to the wire. We talked all about Steelers. What the fuck just happened? We talked all about Steelers and Bengals earlier. That game obviously went into overtime. Another game went into overtime, and we didn't have a winner or a loser, and that was Colts Texans. The Texans were dominating this game. The Colts did not look very good, but in the fourth quarter, they were able to do what they needed to do, tie it up, go to overtime, and nobody could do anything in overtime. Resulted in a fucking tie. And ties are always weird in the NFL. I know for a while, you were talking before the stream, the Steelers looked like they were going to end up in a tie as they have a decent amount of ties throughout their history for some reason. Yeah. But do you think that ties are acceptable in the NFL, or should they change the rules so that you just keep playing until you have a winner?
It makes things more difficult and confusing, especially when you have a tie in the same division, like how it happened yesterday with the Colts and the Texans, and almost another divisional tie was the Steelers and the Bengals. I think this probably gets phased out. It probably gets phased out. I'm not sure why it hasn't yet, to be honest. So I don't know. I always kind of thought ties were weird, but it is what it is, I guess. That's how it's been my entire life in the NFL. But yeah.
Yeah, I think that to me, because so you go another overtime, right? I think that the odds of nobody scoring in one quarter of overtime, it's not great odds, right? We don't see things end in ties very often. If you just added a second overtime, it's like I'm sure somebody would score. I'm sure it would happen. Right.
Or
college football rules. I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that.
Not in first OT, but in second OT, give them the ball on the 30-yard line, one timeout, and you have to go for two. Yeah. You have to go for two. My fucking sound is just bouncing around all over.
That would be a good idea. I think that'd be like an acceptable idea, I suppose, rather than end it in a tie. To me, I don't like the idea, whether it's in any sport. Is it fun to watch penalty kicks in soccer? Like that people go to penalty kicks? Yeah, that's fun. Like it's dramatic, but in reality, that's like deciding an NBA game based on free throws, or it'd be like deciding an NFL game on, all right, hey, we didn't do overtime. Now, kickers go to the 35-yard line. Let's kick 52-yard field goals. 5 for 5. Let's see who gets the most. You know what I mean? It's like not actually the sport itself. But anyway, that was just a brief aside. The game wasn't super fun to watch. I think people were expecting a little more from Matt Ryan. The fact that Matt Ryan had to throw the ball 50 fucking times in this game, I don't think anyone was expecting. But that offense did come to life in the fourth quarter, came back against Lovie Smith and the Houston Texans, ends up in a wash. Somebody who has to feel really bad after yesterday's Baker Mayfield, because Baker Mayfield came in pressing. He wanted to play well against the Browns, and they were getting beat pretty well by the Browns. And then Baker Mayfield leads a comeback for the Carolina Panthers to the point where they take the lead against the Cleveland Browns. And then they end up losing on like a 60-yard field goal.
Last-second field goal.
A last-second field goal from a rookie kicker.
Yep.
That's what did him in. And the Browns sneak past the Panthers. Baker Mayfield's got to feel pretty pissed.
Yeah, and I know he came out and debunked it. He said, "Oh, I never said that." But there was a few weeks ago when they asked him about how he feels about playing the Browns week 1, and there were reports that he said, "Oh, we're gonna fucking kill them, like we're gonna kick their ass or whatever." He's like, "Oh no, I didn't say that." And Panthers being at home, the Browns on a backup quarterback, Jacoby Brissett, and man, I mean, Nick Chubb looked good. Nick Chubb looked good running the ball. He was, I think, the difference maker that helped separate them in the first half from Carolina. But yeah, Baker looked impressive leading that comeback. I know he had a rushing TD, and it's tough. It is tough for Baker. You love to hate Baker, but I don't know. He's a good personality. I like when Baker does well. I think it makes the NFL exciting. I know it made college football exciting when Baker Mayfield, when he had that excellent year, his Heisman year with Oklahoma. I think it's good for the NFL when Baker does well, even though it's easy to hate him.
That's why it's good for them.
Yeah.
Yeah, because if he's on your team, you're gonna rally behind him, and you love his like attitude, sometimes. But if you're playing against him, fuck this cocky motherfucker. I want to shut his ass up. You need Draymond Green. So that's a Draymond Green type of player. Even though I suppose Baker Mayfield's probably more skilled than Draymond Green is in a typical role than we would normally say for the NBA. But like he's that type of guy. He's a guy that you want on your team because this guy will fucking bleed for you.
Yes.
But if he's on the other team, you fucking despise that motherfucker.
Yeah.
So
yeah, there's not many characters like that in the NFL right now besides Baker. I think you can argue that a few years ago, Brady was kind of that guy in New England. You love to hate him. If you aren't a New England fan, you fucking hated Tom Brady. Where I think now in Tampa, Brady has rebranded himself a little bit. He's got better at social media. Looks like he shows his personality, his sense of humor a little bit better now later in his career than he did in the beginning of his career. But yeah, I agree with you that it's good for the NFL to have that kind of cocky son of a bitch, like how Baker Mayfield is. And he's kind of, I'm trying to think, he's kind of really the only one that's a quarterback that's like that in the NFL currently.
Yeah, I guess I'd have to think about that a little bit before I put somebody up there. But yeah, I agree in principle. But the Baker doesn't
Maybe
quite
Rodgers.
get the revenge that he wants. Aaron Rodgers is a little bit different because he's been around so long, been so good. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, for sure. I love to hate Aaron Rodgers on the field. Fuck that motherfucker. He's destroyed my Bears over the past decade and a half. But another close game, which wasn't super close to the end. Saints Falcons. Saints looked dreadful for a good portion of this game. The Falcons with Marcus Mariota were moving the ball. They were doing a lot of read options. They were doing a lot of RPOs. They were, Mariota's out there. Mariota's not going to last. He's going to get hurt. Like, there's no way they can continue playing the way that they are right now, and Mariota won't get hurt at some point. He definitely will. He has every fucking year of his career, basically. But, they looked way better than people thought they would.
Patterson was the difference maker. Patterson, like he was their workhorse yesterday.
Well, Cordarrelle Patterson, kind of had a revival in Atlanta last year. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people were wondering, are we going to get that same type of production? What's it going to end up being? A lot of people were doubtful. He had a very good game, a very good game for them. And at the end of the day, the Saints came roaring back 17 points in the fourth quarter. And you saw Michael Thomas finally back. Michael Thomas had 2 big touchdowns near the end of that game. Jarvis Landry, big pickup for them. Fell, I would say, maybe disappointed the past couple years with the Browns.
I never thought Jarvis Landry was all that. I didn't in Miami. I didn't think in Cleveland. I never understood the Jarvis Landry hype.
Well, I think that Jarvis is very good as long as you let him play his role. I think Jarvis Landry needs to be inside. I think he's a possession receiver. Once you try to like put him outside, I think that's a bad news. So we have somebody outside like Michael Thomas, Jarvis Landry can thrive.
Yeah.
But speaking of big time players, I know you guys have been asking for it. You've been whining that he's not here. Well, he's finally here. Robert Barnes, what's going on, my friend?
Hey, yeah, I got like about 10 minutes. I literally just got off a 4-hour court call, so c'est la vie. But for everybody who watched Sports Wars last week, we gave out one free pick, Texas against Alabama. Texas covered with ease and probably should have won the game. And we told people, maybe the Bears aren't so terrible. And who was the big underdog winner of the week? The Bears.
That's true. Those two picks definitely panned out. It was we're going to wrap it up, NFL talk right here. And there was a lot of games. You talked about it, Robert. You guys said it, sportspicks.locals.com, that there were a lot of road favorites. And when you have those teams, these teams that are heavily favored, going into week one, especially when a crowd's ready, they're ready to rock and they're ready to roar. It's been a year since football happened for some of these guys. There's a lot of teams that had to struggle when they probably shouldn't have.
No doubt. I mean, you saw that. I mean, Houston, that game was not the blowout people thought. Indy was going to just roll in there and stroll. And so, I mean, the team that impressed, that I'll still fully believe it if they keep costing me money, but did impress were the Buffalo Bills, whereas the Rams' offensive line looked really bad. And that offensive scheme that they run is completely dependent on that offensive line being at an elite level. If they're not, they may not even make the playoffs. That's the kind of drop-off the Rams can have when their offensive line isn't functioning. They clearly spent some money in the wrong places, given how easily the Bills took them apart and made Von Miller, look like he was 10 years younger. So that's what stood out to me. I mean, the Cowboys, I was at the game live. Beautiful stadium, by the way. Just outrageously gorgeous stadium. But that offense without Amari Cooper just can't move the ball at all. They don't know what to do with Zeke. They used him on some of the wrong plays. They used Tony Pollard on some of the wrong plays. The defense actually was not bad. The defense, by the way, Tom Brady looks like he hasn't missed a beat at all. He was totally calm out there. That ball was zipping as well as it ever has. His reads were very good. Only one bad read the whole game, the pick.
The one thing I did mention about Tom was that offensive line clearly has some work to do. They had some injuries. They had some injuries during training camp. The one thing maybe you can point to those couple weeks that Tom Brady was not there, or you do have new offensive linemen that are plugging holes that they didn't look in sync. At least certainly not in the first half. And that resulted in, them having to settle for field goals.
Oh, yeah. And the great defensive linebacker / defensive end Parsons for the Cowboys was just whooping up that left tackle. But that was about it. I mean, there was almost no other weakness. Those other receivers weren't open for Dak Prescott. Now, Prescott was missing some plays here and there, no question. Got injured at the end. Their backup is a joke. That guy's a disgrace. I mean, the Cowboys could end up being pretty bad. I heard all the complaints there at the game. Nobody likes Mike McCarthy. They all think he should be canned. Oof. So I think and there's going to be increasing pressure on Jerry Jones, and more blame is shifting to Jones. Though you go there, the place is like a pageant. It's like going to an event, not just a game. I mean, they got these crazy lounges everywhere, high-end food and all the rest, separate little club settings. The whole stadium is like some coliseum from the past centuries. I mean, everything about it is extraordinary as an event, and I highly recommend. It lives up to expectations.
Well, they got to do something to entertain the crowd when you don't have an offense on the field.
That's exactly right. 3 points. 3 points. I mean,
it begs the question, what do the Cowboys do now? 6 to 8 weeks recovery time for Dak Prescott, so you're looking at potentially a Week 8 comeback, maybe.
Trade for Jimmy G. Trade for Jimmy G. Get him. Go ahead. I mean, now
that's what we're saying, yeah.
Now everybody knows why Jimmy G got that deal and what we talked about last week. Because what we said is, Trey Lance, I got serious doubts. Well, the Bears took him apart. So I think that, that's the only reason why Jimmy G hasn't been traded. But they need to get out there and find themselves the best quality backup that's out there. Otherwise, they're going to be out of the playoffs before it even starts. And this is a year when the NFC is weak. This was the year to make a run. If they blow that, Jerry Jones has blown another opportunity. Have they won a playoff game in 20 years? I forget.
They've won one or two.
Won a few years ago.
Yeah.
At
Minnesota, maybe.
And I think it was a mistake to invest money in Dak the way that they did. You can make the argument, what would you do? Yeah, and Zeke. Certainly Zeke. Because at this point in time, I think the less Zeke you see, the more Tony Pollard you see, the more effective the offense is going to be for them. Especially like you said, without Amari Cooper to take the top off the defense, they can just crowd, and Zeke is very ineffective. Does Jimmy G solve the problems for that team? I don't think so. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no. I mean, I don't think. I think, and the other thing is they needed. Just giving up Amari Cooper for nothing isn't going to work. Lamb is better as a number 2 than he is a number 1. That was clear throughout the game. He wasn't getting that open that often. They don't know their identity. I mean, Pollard's more of a pass-happy offense kind of running back. Elliott's a more power-running, play-action kind of offense. But this is Jones making a sequence of bad decisions that might all culminate in a really bad year this year. That's what they're on pace for, unless something dramatic happens between now and then. Because that quarterback I saw out there doesn't even belong in the league. I mean, it was clear when he was like,
Cooper Rush is.
Where is he from? I don't even remember that guy.
Isn't it like Boise State? It's something like that. I don't know. I don't remember where Cooper Rush went to school, but since we have you here, Robert, I know you don't have a ton of time because you're so busy right now. I wanted to shift over to college because obviously that's a big priority for you. We've been talking a lot of NFL, but college, we talked about Alabama, Texas. Alabama, everyone around Alabama should be treating this as a loss because it should have been just that against a backup quarterback who could not walk, basically, and Alabama barely escapes. Do you think this is indicative of Alabama as a team? Is it just a one-game thing? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I was at that game too. I had great tickets. It was a great game, fun to watch. I think Texas would have won if Ewers hadn't got hurt with the pile drive there at the end of the first quarter by the Alabama defender. What I've been saying for years about Alabama is that for the last decade or so, without someone like Sarkisian at the offensive helm, or someone like Kirby Smart or Purdue or some of the elite guys on the defensive coordinator side, Alabama, despite having number 1 talent, has not had even a top 10 offense or defense by a lot of statistical metrics. And people have just been ignoring that. Their offense has been good, but just not elite or explosive. The defense has been good, but not suffocating like last year's Georgia's defense, those rare elite knock you out kind of defenses. And they still have that, and Saban hasn't fixed that. And especially, he was never really great at a pass-happy scheme, offensively or defensively. It's part of the reason why he failed in the NFL as a coach. He was much safer in college football when you could hold a lot downfield on the defensive side, when it was about running the ball and stopping the run. Now that the college football game is increasingly about neither, it skipped Saban by a little bit, and nobody's noticed because he's hired some great coordinators along the way, and he continues to recruit at elite level. But if you look deeper at the metrics, it's like, this is the same Alabama team that should have lost to a bad Auburn team last year on the road, should have lost to a bad Florida team on the road, did lose to Texas A&M on the road. I didn't understand why they were 20-point favorites in Austin, even though everybody in the sports betting world was telling me I was an idiot and that Alabama was going to roll and it was going to be over by half. It was going to be 42-10. I watched the game live. One thing stood out for me also about Bryce Young. He's going to be an NFL backup, not an NFL starter. So his best asset is the kid's totally cool. So the fact that he was behind there in the fourth quarter, you knew wouldn't affect him at all. He's mentally utterly unfazed. You can just see it in his body language. Mm-hmm. However, he doesn't anticipate great. He tends to stick with whoever his first read is. He missed wide open receivers all game long. He sometimes forces the ball in tricky situations. Now he's still better than Hudson Card. Well, I don't know how that guy was a 5-star recruit. He came in and was utterly unimpressive. He missed people all over the game. Was too high, too low, sideways, this direction. He's not going to make it.
I think Bryce Young to me seems like a 1-read, 2-read run guy.
That's exactly what he is.
You know what I mean?
So he'll be, because his mind is good and his arm motion's good and he's got zip and he's got all those things and he can run a little bit out of the pocket. He'd be a great backup. He'd be a guy who come in and will do solid as a back, but he'll never be an NFL starter or an NFL elite unless he's on a bad team. So that's going to put a little bit of a ceiling on Alabama. That's why I'm still more favorable to Georgia and Ohio State to win it all than I am Alabama, even though Alabama and also Georgia has the softer schedule than Alabama. Ohio State has the softer schedule than Alabama. So that was my takeaway. Alabama's going to be very good. Once again, it's not a suffocating defense. It's not a dominating offense. Texas game proved that. They got very lucky. They knocked out the quarterback or they would have lost that game.
Yeah, and we did see some big upsets. We thought that was going to be the upset of upsets. Appalachia State, after coming off, somehow losing that game to North Carolina when they had every opportunity to not do so, you would think it'd be pretty easy for them to just lay down against a number 6 Texas A&M team and College Station, but they didn't. And Texas A&M, Jimbo Fisher, who everybody associated with them, spent a lot of fucking money in NIL stuff. All of a sudden, they're sitting there at 1-1 with a really bad loss on their record.
No doubt. You're talking about a Jimbo Fisher that's like 9-1 covering spreads of 3 scores or more. So for him to not only not cover but lose outright to Appy State after Appy State's heartbreaking loss to their in-state rival North Carolina was really kind of shocking. But it does reflect one problem that A&M has had now for the last 3 years, which is despite all of Mon's problems, Fisher hasn't replaced them offensively with any consistent quarterback play. And it was their offense that really, I mean, like if you thought App State won, you wouldn't have guessed it would be because A&M couldn't move the ball like North Carolina could in a single quarter. Yeah. And so that tells some problems there in Aggie land. And I think you saw that. I mean, Ohio State didn't look great, but the biggest upset shocker to me was Marshall going into South Bend and whooping up on Notre Dame. Wow.
That doesn't surprise me because I am biased. I truly admit that. I grew up about 30 minutes from Notre Dame's campus. I've hated Notre Dame my entire life. They are always overrated, consistently overrated. I do not understand why they're always overrated. But, especially with the turnover from Brian Kelly, I think people, not that I think Brian Kelly is the most incredible coach in the world or anything, but I think people severely underestimated like Brian Kelly leaving that place. All of a sudden, Brian Kelly moving on and just expecting them to continue performing at this top 10 level that people actually thought they were to begin with. And Notre Dame is now 0-2.
Consistency is tricky in college football. As people are discovering, some of these first-year coaches are uncovering, and some other big-name coaches are finding out as well. And I'll leave folks with this. The whatever game you watch a replay of, I recommend you skip the Iowa State game. That was the ugliest game in maybe the history of college football. It was like, who's going to screw up a punt worse? Who's going to throw a pick at the 5-yard line worse? Who's going to fumble into the end zone? Whoever the underbettors were clearly had the blessings of the gambling gods because they found every conceivable way to not score in that game. And yet, at least credit to Iowa State, they finally broke through. First time I think in 7 years. They beat Iowa. They beat Iowa at Iowa. Iowa's offense is atrocious and abominable and an embarrassment. But we'll see how all that folds. But it was a fun week in college football, and we'll be back Wednesday with more picks and previews for everything here on Sports Wars. Thanks, everybody, and sorry for the short night, but thank the California Court of Appeals. They were busy.
There you go. I appreciate you, Robert. Thanks for hanging out, man.
Absolutely. Thanks.
There we go. Robert Barnes joining while on the road, while busy as hell, so we appreciate Robert being here. Now, you're a USC guy, right, Beardo? What do you think? You actually went and saw them in their opening game. You're going this weekend as well.
Yep.
How do you think they're looking here in the Pac-12 early stages?
I think they are looking really well. They were up it was 41 to 14 or something like that, and they led who they play? Stanford.
Yeah, they beat Stanford. People were looking forward to this Stanford game and thinking, this obviously the first game wasn't real. It was against Rice or something. Yeah. This is going into Stanford, going into a Pac-12 rival, and they dominated. They did exactly what you would have expected the talent level that USC has to do. Not necessarily easy going into Stanford to do that, but that's what they did.
Yeah, they're ripe with a whole bunch of transfers, top athletes who transferred just to play for Lincoln Riley. And I think USC, they're looking really good, and they are making their case why they deserve to be in the Big Ten.
Yeah, and I do think we've talked about it a lot. The way transfer portals are so different now than they were, say, 5 or 6 years ago. So, when Lincoln Riley decides to pick up from OU and go somewhere else,
and he brought his starting quarterback with him.
His starting quarterback comes with him. That was unheard of a decade ago. Now it's going to start to become the new normal, I think. Especially when you move to these programs where you have the NIL money at play and things like that. Yeah. Even though OU has been such a consistently good program at Oklahoma over the past decade and a half, 2 decades, whatever you want to call it. You can't deny that USC just has this rich story history and a lot of money to throw around when you're looking at the people involved with that to get talent there. So I'm interested in watching USC this year. I really think that they could do something with Lincoln Riley, with that culture shift there.
Yes.
But they're gonna have to run the table if they want to do it, or at least in all likelihood they'll have to run the table. Depends how the rest of the year shakes out for everyone. In terms of the Big Ten, you heard Robert talk about Iowa, an Iowa team that's been ranked, in the top 25, several times over the past several years. Don't look very good to me. Wisconsin loses in a game to Washington State, where a lot of people thought Washington definitely should have walked away with that one.
Mm-hmm.
Ohio State hasn't looked great, although they still do have that big ranking, the number 3 in the nation right now. I think Ohio State, I would expect them to pick it up as the season progresses, but
they need to for sure. And CJ Stroud, he's up there with the Bryce. Some people think he's better than Bryce Young. I think he probably has more NFL potential than Bryce Young. I agree with Robert that I don't think that Bryce Young is going to transition well into the NFL. He's a little undersized. But yeah, Ohio State needs to pick it up if they want any piece of the college football playoff and to make it to the national championship.
Yeah, and I think that Ohio State, that opening game against Notre Dame, they didn't look great. Mm-hmm. Now that we saw Notre Dame drop one at home to Marshall, now you're thinking, all right, well,
now that win doesn't look impressive at all,
yeah. Where does that victory really play for Ohio State? A lot of people, they didn't look great. They didn't look super sharp. They did fucking destroy Arkansas State this week, but now people are looking back at that Notre Dame game with kind of a different pair of eyes, because it does feel a lot different now that we've seen Notre Dame struggling like this. I did want to go back real quick because we didn't get to talk about a game or two in the NFL that I really want to talk about, and that is your Giants.
Let's go, baby.
Tennessee Titans. How'd you feel about that game?
So the Giants started off very slow and very poor, almost like they were playing very conservative. Our play caller and offensive coordinator, Mike Kafka, he came from Kansas City, and he looked very, his play calling was very conservative for the first few drives. Our pass defense did not look good nearly the entire game. I several times I felt like Tannehill should have been due for a pick, but our secondary was poor nearly all game, but our run defense was fantastic. We laid the blueprint for the rest of the league on how to stop Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry didn't do jack shit against the Giants yesterday, and I knew going into that game that if the Giants could stop Derrick Henry and make Tannehill beat the Giants, we had a chance, and that's exactly what happened. We won on a missed last-second field goal, but a win is a win. But Barkley, I think Saquon Barkley was the highlight of the Giants' offense for sure. There was a big play from Daniel Jones, a big pass to Sterling Shepard. That was a huge touchdown, like a 70-yard touchdown. That definitely was the momentum shift, I think, into the Giants saying, hey, you know what? We're still in this. We can win this fucking game. New regime, week 1 win. And this was our first week 1 win in 6 years, Ryan.
Wow.
6 years. The Giants have started 0-2 for the past 6 years. Our first win week 1 in 6 years. So I'm feeling pretty good right now.
That's pretty rough. And I do think Saquon Barkley is a huge piece of that puzzle. He was drafted, 3 overall? Is that where they took him? 2nd overall?
It was Baker and then Saquon.
Now, as someone who watched a lot of Saquon Barkley, because he was Penn State guy, I watched a lot of Penn State games, a Big Ten guy myself. I always thought that when he got to the NFL, I was worried about his durability, because a lot of miles got put on Saquon Barkley at Penn State.
Facts.
Lot of fucking heavy running miles.
Yep.
And, a couple injuries these first couple seasons in the NFL. If he's back to form, that's a game changer for those guys. And if Saquon can get legitimately to a top 5 NFL running back again, that makes things a lot easier on that Giants offense.
Yeah, his rookie year, he was great. And then his second year, he tore his ACL. Mm-hmm. And then last year, or was it? Maybe it was his third year he tore his ACL.
I think it was I don't remember exactly the order, but
he tore his ACL, and then Adrian Peterson a few years ago kind of set an unrealistic precedent for how the recovery time on tearing an ACL, because he literally tore his ACL, and the next year he went and won MVP and nearly broke Emmitt Smith's single season rushing record. So that is very unrealistic. And I think that last year Saquon was still nursing that ACL injury. Definitely not himself as far as full speed goes. But this year, I think fully rested up on that ACL. He's got confidence in that knee. He's going to be the Giants' workhorse this season, and I'm very excited for Saquon Barkley this year. And I specifically, because being a Giants fan, I try to stay away from drafting Giants players for fantasy football, but Saquon is one that I would want to draft, but I didn't. I stayed away from him just because of the lack of productivity the past few years. But if you took a chance on drafting Saquon this season for fantasy, I think you got a good one, because I think Saquon's going to have a big year.
He was probably underdrafted because of the worries people have seen the past few years. A lot of people used a high draft pick and busted with him, because of those injuries. So it's funny you mentioned Adrian Peterson. It seemed like Adrian Peterson tore his ACL, and the only thing he had after was a slight limp when he was running really fast. You know what I mean? Like a little duck that he had every time he fucking hit that knee when he was really trying to go for home.
It almost seemed like he was faster too when he had that limp.
Motherfucker had to be using steroids or something. He recovers so quick from that. So quick.
I think. I mean, you also have to look. Remember when Ray Lewis completely tore his tricep off of his fucking bone, literally, and played 7 weeks later in the playoffs and in the Super Bowl, and then he was getting a whole bunch of shit for taking growth hormone and shit like that to help him recover. And do you remember what his excuse was? He said that I took deer antler velvet.
Deer antler velvet.
Deer antler velvet to recover from his tricep injury. And people are like, deer antler velvet? Really? Give me a fucking break. We know, just like we know that Ray Lewis killed a guy, we know that he was taking growth hormone.
Hey, listen, Ray Lewis only helped hide the body, all right?
Oh, okay. He only helped kill the guy.
Yeah, but speaking of Adrian Peterson and Le'Veon Bell had a boxing match not that long ago, and this is how it ended.
Very evenly matched, and not only in its
down goes Peterson! Stunner.
This is that face when you realize you're not fighting your kid. That's the face from Adrian Peterson when you realize that this one actually hits back. And now listen. Both these guys have had a lot of fucking contact. Adrian Peterson's probably been tackled 100,000 times in the fucking NFL. So I can't imagine his brain, is doing okay from that. This is just one more chance of CTE right here. Let's watch this knockout again. He buckled him.
Oh, yeah. Nice clean hit right on the front of his chin.
Both these guys look like fucking boxers, though. My God.
Oh, they're huge.
They're still in such good shape. Holy shit. But had to talk about that. Also, I want to hit a couple of these super chats because we did get some. Again, Darkside Droids with a $20. Thank you, Darkside Droids. Appreciate you. Buford T. Justice says the National Felons League for $10. Thank you, Buford. The Matrix and Roadshow. Member for 22 months. What's up, John? To hell with my Cowboys in big games. That was bad. That was really bad. Really bad, Matrix. Yeah. But yeah, shout out Matrix. Ubuntu. What's up, Ubuntu? For $5. I love the Packers and Aaron Rodgers, but I'm sick of them trying to ride his bum knee to another championship, develop new talent like before. This could be a rough year for the Packers. It's only one game. I don't want to piss off you Packers fans in chat. I know there's a fucking lot of you here. Man, the weapons he has, they do not look like they're ready for what Aaron Rodgers probably needs them to do this year, but we will see, Ubuntu. We'll see going forward. Alex L for $5. Chargers win. I hope Allen gets better and it's nothing serious. Yes, we need to talk about the Chargers, and we will talk about that in one second. Road Rager for $2. Which bandwagon should I hop if the Broncos lose? There's a lot of bandwagon
Giants.
Broncos fans. Giants. There you go. Fear the Beardo says Giants. So there you have it. That was pretty easy, huh? We should talk about that Chargers game. I was really looking forward to that game because I think the Chargers are so talented, and I really like Justin Herbert. They got stars on defense. They got stars on offense. It's just a fun team to watch, to be honest with you, with their skill positions. And they got it done against the Raiders. I don't think maybe it was the highest scoring game as people thought it would be, but Devonta Adams, first game back, or first game as a Raider, looks like he's definitely going to feast, and that he likes having Derek Carr throwing him the ball. He had like 10 catches for 140 yards, somewhere around that. And the Chargers got what they did what they needed to do. They ended up winning by 5. Raiders can't mount a comeback. Keenan Allen did get hurt in this game. I haven't had any updates on how serious it may have been. Maybe I can check really quick. Let me click on Keenan Allen. Keenan Allen hamstring was listed as a non-participant in the Chargers' estimated injury report. I'll say this. As a guy who watched a lot of Chargers football when I was living in San Diego, even though it was after they had left San Diego, I've watched Keenan Allen a lot. I have Keenan Allen on my fantasy football teams nearly every fucking year because I think he's so good. He gets injured a lot. He leaves games often. He gets banged up, but he'll almost always be out there to play the next week. Almost always. Actually, right, where is it? Right here. That's my Jason Tatum. Right? I don't know if you can see that. That football right there, that's Keenan Allen signed football, actually.
Heck yeah. That's dope.
But yeah, what was your takeaway from this game?
I thought that, let me turn my volume back up. Let's see. I do have Justin Herbert as my fantasy quarterback this year, so we are big Justin Herbert fans for this NFL season. I was actually really impressed with their tight end, Gerald Everett, tight end number 7. That's dope, by the way. I thought that was cool. But
the new numbering in the NFL is crazy, man.
It's crazy, but tight end number 7, Gerald Everett, he was impressive yesterday. If you're looking for a fantasy tight end, maybe you're lacking in the tight end department or whatever it is, he is a good waiver pickup. Put in a claim for Gerald Everett this week. I liked the Chargers. I think they did underperform a little bit. I had too many punts. The Raiders definitely stopped them, I think, too many times that they should have. But it's week 1. They're going to figure stuff out. But the Chargers did deserve to win this game. Raiders came back later on, made it interesting. But ultimately, yeah, I mean, Herbert looked good. Chargers looked good. I think that maybe just a few too many punts that where they were stopped shouldn't have been stopped, but they got away with the win.
Well, I think from a fantasy perspective, when you're looking at this game and Mike Williams has 2 catches for like 10 yards, Austin Eckler doesn't have a catch. Austin Eckler gets held to like 30 or 40 yards rushing. It was not the production you expected out of this Chargers team. I think people expected them to score more points. I think it's going to move the ball a little better. But even though you didn't have some of those weapons, they took some of those weapons away, whatever you want to call it. Justin Herbert was still able to spread the ball around and, throw for 3 touchdowns and get things done. I think Justin Herbert's really fucking good. I think Derek Carr's also good. That's the thing. In AFC West, you have a lot of good quarterbacks. Patrick Mahomes, Russell Wilson, Justin Herbert, and Derek Carr. Yep. And I think the Las Vegas Raiders are going to be a big threat this season. I mean, we talked about it before. You could argue that there's 4, top 12 teams in the AFC West. One of those teams is going to play tonight. We're going to see the Denver Broncos in what may be a big blowout. The Denver Broncos against the Seattle Seahawks. Just conveniently, Russell Wilson goes to a new team and they happen to play each other on opening night in Seattle, Monday Night Football. I'm sure there was nothing crazy about that. Just so happened to be that was the schedule. Yeah. What are you looking for in this game tonight?
Man, what am I looking for? Well, I have Jerry Jeudy, so I hope that Russ feeds Jerry Jeudy the ball. I'm excited. I'm excited to see what this new look Denver Broncos. They just got a brand new head coach from was he the offensive coordinator or quarterback coach in Green Bay last year?
Yeah, Green Bay.
I forget his name, but no, I'm excited. I'm excited for the new regime, new look Denver Broncos. I'm excited to see Sutton come back. I believe he was injured last year, first year back after injury. Excited to see him come back. Jerry Jeudy. I'm not sure about their running game. I know they still have Melvin Gordon. He's kind of a bum, but I'm excited. Russ brings the excitement, the electricity going back into Seattle, which he's going to be getting a dose of that of the 12th man, that the Seattle 12th man, they have either the loudest or the second loudest stadium in the NFL. And Russ usually with that kind of crowd control, pretty quiet when he's on offense. Well, now he's playing against the Seahawks. So we're going to see how that noise affects Russell Wilson tonight. But I think the Broncos probably get the win because I think Geno Smith is fucking terrible. He was terrible. Every team Geno Smith has been with, the Jets, the Giants, and now the Seahawks. I mean, Geno Smith he's fucking bad. So I don't expect much from the Seahawks tonight offensively. We'll see if Seattle's defense can hold Russ, but I think the Broncos get away with this one pretty easily.
I think you mentioned Jerry Jeudy, Cortland Sutton coming back is going to be a big deal for them. Javonte Williams and Melvin Gordon in that backfield. And I think that, Melvin Gordon's fucked up a lot in his life in terms of the decisions he's made. He decided to hold out with the Chargers, right? He didn't want to fucking play, wanted to hold out for more money. As a result, they said, well, fuck you, Melvin. We're going to play this guy named Austin Eckler. We'll see what he can do. And Austin Eckler, was awesome. Austin Eckler played really fucking well to the point where Melvin Gordon had to end his holdout earlier and come back and play because he knew this guy was going to get so much run time. And so he missed out on the big contract they offered him, had to take less to end up signing with the Broncos, tried to hold out a little bit this offseason, ended up coming back to the Broncos for a 1-year deal, and now he's lost his starting role. Now, Javonte Williams looks to be the lead back, Melvin Gordon the backup, but still two talented guys back there for the Broncos.
Absolutely.
And, it'll be interesting to see. I think that this is a team that's been looking for a quarterback for a while, that feels like they have pieces, but they just don't have that quarterback. Russell Wilson, you better be able to get it done with this man. That's all anyone's looking at here. So if they don't do anything but impress, it's going to be a disappointing debut for Russell Wilson. But I do expect him to come out there and play pretty well.
Yeah.
Andrew Odom for $5. Roll Tide. Close call against Texas, but I'll take the win. Enjoy the Sports Wars live streams. Keep it up. Thank you very much, Andrew. Appreciate that, dude. Connor Akers for $5. The most underrated aspect of football season includes the funny and humorous commentary from YouTubers like Urinating Tree and Tom Grossi. Yeah, people love this shit. Like, I think about for baseball, I watch so much of what John Boy puts out for baseball. It's because it's funny as hell. You know what I mean?
Yeah. He's good at it. He's good at lip reading, and he's good. He does good breakdowns. I like John Boy.
Like, oh, look at this guy in the background. What do you say? Go fuck your mom? Well, that's a little bit weird, but here we go. 2-0 count. You know, shit like that makes it real funny. And I know a lot of people, like Urinating Tree and Tom Grossi, people like that too. So thanks, Connor. Appreciate the super chat. Let me see if we got anything going on over on Streamlabs, because we've been going a little bit over an hour, and that's about how long these streams are. Cool. Looks like we're done. Now, with that being said, hey, a crazy week one. It's not quite over yet. You got Monday Night Football. But what do you got coming up this week, Beardo? Anything to promote?
Anything to promote this week? I need to get back to making YouTube videos, man. I've been slacking on editing and doing stuff.
Lazy bastard.
I know. I just got caught up on She-Hulk. Thing is, I want to be in the mix with the whole House of the Dragon thing, but I never watched Game of Thrones. And the thing is, it's hard for me to want to start it now because of how I know it ends. I know that nobody likes season 8. So I'm like 3 episodes in. I'm giving it a shot. I want to be in on the whole House of the Dragon stuff and Rings of Power. I'm just not too into, I watched Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, but all of these guys, all the guys that are like Epic Mike and everything like that, and George the Giant Slayer, they like read the books. Like, this is like their Bible. So
yeah. So
it's a little out of my element, but that's about it. I mean, but for tonight's game, if Denver does play well, I mean, I think it's already clear that the AFC West is the toughest division in football. But man, after yesterday, Devontae Adams made Derek Carr look like a top 5 quarterback. I think the AFC West is the most competitive. There could be 3 teams that make the playoffs out of the AFC West, maybe even 4.
If the car, with the extra spots for the playoffs now,
that's what I'm saying.
In theory, it could happen. Yeah. It would be crazy if it did, because typically they're going to beat up on each other a little bit, but it all depends. We're going to have to see what happens. But certainly it'll be a fun one. There's a lot of Geeks and Gamers stuff going on tonight. Jeremy is live over on the main Geeks and Gamers channel. They do a little retro collecting thing. That's what they're doing right now. It's called, you remember what it's called, Beardo? He's fucking live right now. I can't even remember.
Let me go look at Jeremy's tweet.
Anyway, Bragging rights. That's what it's called. It's called bragging rights. So guys, head there, go to the main Geeks and Gamers channel. I'm sure one of the mods can probably put the link down below. But we appreciate you hanging out. Next time, Robert should be with us the majority of the time. We can continue to break these games down. But a good week one. Appreciate all of you guys showing up and showing out for Monday evening quarterback. Thank you guys very much. We will talk to you next time.